Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Friends, it's time to once again watch Star Trek, the original series, this time Season 3, Episode 9, The Tholian Web. Every day's a good day when you get to board the NCC 1701, that beauty. Before we get started, friends, if you could do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. It greatly helps out a small channel, and it allows me to alert you next time we go live. And of course, if there's anything that we do, Star Trek the original series included, that you would like early or in its full-length format, the link to our Patreon is in the description. Not a fan of Patreon? Stick with us here on YouTube memberships. You'll get all of our episodes about a day early, plus the bonus episodes I have lined up for the end of my run here on Star Trek the original series. But friends, all that is then and this is now, and now it's time to watch Star Trek the original series, Season 3, Episode 9, The Tholian Web. Prepare to engage maximum warp reaction. And away we go! Look at that beauty. Right out of the gate, a beauty. We have seen that crewman, that blonde-haired crewman back at, I don't know what that station is, kind of opposite of Science, several times now. I think it's the same actor.
The Enterprise is approaching the last reported position of the starship Defiant. We are in unsurveyed territory.
Ooh.
String very curious readings from all sensors.
Specify.
I cannot.
I can't.
We're losing power in the warp engines.
How bad is it?
We can barely read it, but I don't like the looks of it.
Back us off.
Visual detection of an object dead ahead.
It's the Defiant. That certainly looks like a ship. I see a nacelle.
There is virtually no sensor contact, no mass analysis, no trace of radiation. We see it, but our sensors...
They don't. Cool. You literally have to see it. That's awesome. Constitution class, I guess. Now, I do know that the Defiant's the ship on DS9, I believe. I know that from the First Contact movie. I think.
Mr. Spock, Mr. Chekhov, come with me. Dr. McCoy, report to the transporter room immediately. Scotty, you have the comm.
Aye, sir.
Cool shot. Sulu lining up. Oh, wow. Holy smokes.
Locked in on the Defiant Bridge, sir.
Energize.
Those are some suits. Look at that. NCC 1764. Oh, they were attacking each other. All right, Jim's going to tell us about the final frontier as we speculate on this bad boy. I like setups like this. Something we haven't seen. I mean, we've seen other, like, you know, ships in distress and kind of maddening, you know, crews that have been psychologically kind of corrupted or compromised. There's different ways to tell those stories, and I always think that they're interesting. And I heard a quote sometime, and I can't remember where it's from, but basically, and I'll paraphrase what it meant, somebody said, you know, I think that we dramatically undersell how often somebody would go crazy living in space, you know, or just lose their minds. I often think of making my way through most of The Expanse. Now I have one season left as of this recording. You know, the very beginning of The Expanse spoke of like people that would just lose their minds being out in space too long. I think of the XO of the Canterbury had that problem, but here we go. Let's see this. Written by Judy Burns and Chet Richards. I don't think we've heard those. Herb Wallerstein. I don't think we've had Herb either. They're taking the shot from a different angle to make it look a little bit different from our bridge.
Absolutely no record of such an occurrence, Anson.
I mean, definite expense put into the props for these, you know, EV suits.
The captain's neck is broken.
What about the rest of everybody? Are the turbo lifts working, or?
Spock, you stay here with me. Chekhov, get down to engineering and life support systems. Dr. McCoy, check out the sick bay.
I'm not sure we should be splitting up, but...
I can't get an accurate fix on the Defiant, Mr. Scott. But I know it's drifting away from us. Shall I correct for range, sir? Aye. I think you're right. Keep us within beaming range, but not too close.
Sulu eyeballing this. I love it. I mean, it looked obvious to us that it was drifting off, but I think that it was supposed to be more subtle than that because Scotty looked at it for a second and was like, no, I think you're right. And I like that because that means Sulu picked up on that almost immediately. He's so spatially aware. You know, a pilot, man. I love it. Love it. Good stuff. This person's still strapped down. We need to find out how they died. Because, I mean, technically they all couldn't have died by fighting each other. There would have been a victor.
Just like what I found in life support. All dead.
Good acting in this one, by the way. Oh, shit. Well, those suits did not have the desired effect.
According to the ship's log, the medical surgeon down here didn't even know what was going on. The best I can do is get all the readings I can get and analyze them later.
Yeah, do that. Is that guy glowing? Or is that like a filter or a tint? That's a tint. I can see it on bones, too.
What the devil?
Bones, what is it?
Are all of them insubstantial?
Answer me.
What the hell's going on?
Jim, this ship is dissolving. My hand just passed through a man and a table.
Get back up here on the double.
Oh, shit!
Transporter room, O'Neill here.
You got that transporter working yet, mister?
No, sir, not yet.
Take over, Mr. Sulu. I'll be in the transporter room.
Aye, aye, sir.
I like how Sulu didn't take the chair. He's like, I can do it from here.
Correspond with an extremely high degree of correlation to those of the Enterprise.
You mean what happened to the Defiant might be happening to the Enterprise?
Affirmative.
Let's get the absolute F out of here.
Scott here.
Mr. Scott, stand by to beam us back.
Can't, sir. At least not all at once.
O'Neill's like,
Request permission to remain, Captain. I could be completing the data.
Request denied.
Captain, there is a chance.
I know what the chances are. Mr. Spock, don't argue. Get back with the information.
I don't like the idea. We've got 3 working, maybe.
Order.
Aye.
This O'Neill kid's got some really cool reactive shots. Ruh-roh. You guys all right? You feeling like that? You got all your toes? Let me guess. Jim and transporters are always a sure bet. It's one of the most graphic things. That's blood coming down his face. That's one of the most graphic things we've seen on Star Trek. If that's blood.
It's gone. The Defiant just vanished.
Well, then Jim is fucking floating out there, everybody.
There's nothing out there to grab a hold of and bring in. When that ship went, it must have taken the captain with it.
Okay, well, where did it go?
Next interface, 2 hours, 12 minutes.
So it's slipping out of phase.
We exist in a universe which coexists with a multitude of others in the same physical space. At certain brief periods of time, an area of their space overlaps an area of ours. The time of interphase during which we can connect with the Defiance universe.
What does that mean?
If we are not extremely careful, we shall lose the captain and become trapped ourselves.
I see.
And I like him?
Oh boy.
Check off!
Oh!
Security guards on the bridge.
Aye, sir.
Oh, look at Sulu making sure he's okay.
Did anyone notice anything peculiar in his behavior before this?
That brings a tear to my eye. Oh my God. Way to go, George. Hell of a cool move there, man.
Angry than frightened.
He sticks
We
with
had
it.
no cause to be angry.
Take Mr. Chekhov to sickbay, put him under restraint.
Careful with him. That was so cool. Oh, George Takei did a great job. He cupped his head and like was really in, like lowering him down.
Whatever it was that drove the crew of the Defiant to murder each other could be communicable.
Is there anything you need to isolate the cause?
Sample?
I think it might be a wise precaution to put some distance between us and the Defiant.
If we are to recover the captain, we must not move.
I wonder if we're going to stick with the Enterprise the whole time and not go see what Jim's doing. That would be awesome if that happens.
We must catch him at the precise moment during the next interphase, or he will die.
Mr. Spock, a vessel approaching on an intercept vector.
What?
Lieutenant Uhura, signal red alert.
Aye, sir. Red alert. All decks.
I like that spot.
Security control.
Triangular configuration. I haven't seen its like, which means nothing. I know nothing about.
I'm receiving a visual signal.
Transfer to main viewer.
Aye, sir.
Whoa.
You are trespassing in the territorial annex of the Tholian Assembly. You must leave this area immediately.
Commander, according to the Federation, this area is free space.
We claim this territory and are prepared to use force.
Oh, for.
The other ship is interspatially trapped. It should reappear in 1 hour and 53 minutes.
But be correct. We do not tolerate deceit.
Okay. That's interesting.
Proper filtering agent, we might be able to solve this problem.
Well, Christina's new haircut.
Negative. It's a third failure.
I'm liking this. I'm liking this view.
Dr. McCoy!
Jesus. Johnny on the spot there, Christine. Come on, Plum. Very tense, very kinetic movements. I like it. See ya.
Thank you, nurse. Call security. I want to have some checks run on this man.
No need, he's dead. This was poison. Plum's like, holy shit.
Bring him aboard, Mr. Scott.
He hears you.
Sensor readings are not corresponding to those we received the last time we saw the Defiant.
Possible that Tholian entry into the area has disturbed the space. And if that has occurred...
You gotta compensate.
However, the ship's sensors are not responding as predicted.
Well, I thought you had the thing timed out.
Not at this interphase. I shall have to recalculate to determine when the next interphase will occur.
The cause is the area of space we're in. It's affecting the whole crew. The molecular structure of the brain tissues and the central nervous system are distorting.
That's not great.
Now, you've got to get this ship out of here.
Mr. Spock, we're being fired upon.
I mean, for fuck's sake here.
Renowned Tholian punctuality.
Mr. Spock.
Sulu, divert all but emergency maintenance power to the shields.
But sir, that'll reduce our phaser power by 50%.
Mr. Spock just looked at Sulu. I am aware.
Lieutenant Uhura, open the channel to the Tholian ship.
Aye, sir.
Begin with this. What the fuck are you doing?
What's the use of this battle, Spock? You've lost Jim. Take the ship out of here.
Ready, Mr. Sulu?
Said that while staring down McCoy. See ya.
I can't do a thing with the Enterprise now. She's bound to drift. Maybe right through that doorway out there.
Can you estimate minimum time required for repair?
I don't even know if she can be repaired.
He just turned it off. I don't want to hear that.
Spock, why did you do it?
The decision to fight was logical. Lack of time prevented any other course of action.
He's not leaving Jim.
And done everything in your power to safeguard your crew.
He's not leaving Jim.
Please go at once to your laboratory and search for an antidote to the effects of this space.
Plum, read between the lines, man.
It's another Tholian, sir.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Lieutenant Uhura, can you open a channel to the approaching vessel?
They're refusing reception, sir. I can't break...
Distance, Mr. Sulu.
Whoa, what?
What is that?
What is that? They like bumped asses and... It's like a cage? I like this. This is different.
And if the Tholians are successful in completing this structure before we have completed our repairs, we shall not see home again.
I'm going to tell you what I love the most about this, and we're probably going to cut over to Jim right now. Not having Jim in this is awesome. This is a really cool episode. That's the crewman that just walked across there, the blonde, who's working the station parallel to science on the other side. I think, what did you guys say that was? Operations, maybe?
We're progressing. The urgency requires your personal attention in the laboratory.
You're excused from this meeting.
My being there will not affect the biochemistry of any of the tests. This service requires my personal attention, Mr. Spock.
Remember, everybody, we're going to start hating each other. A lot of extras.
The Tholian ship has been disabled. But as a result of the battle, we must accept the fact that Captain Kirk is no longer alive.
Wow.
Put him in restraint.
That gold shirt right behind Plum had a great reaction. Really good reaction looking around at everybody else.
Each of you must evaluate the loss in the privacy of your own thoughts.
Attention. Dismissed.
I like that it was Scotty that did that.
The captain left a message tape. It was his order that it be reviewed by both of us should he ever be declared dead. You have just declared Jim dead.
The mental and physical state of this crew are your responsibility, Doctor. At the moment, they are your top priority.
The captain's last order is top priority.
I'm the captain now. This is awesome.
He was a hero in every sense of the word, yet his life was sacrificed for nothing.
You could have assured yourself of a captaincy by leaving the area. But you chose to stay. Why?
Jim Kirk is my friend.
I was bound, legally and morally, to ascertain the captain's status.
You mean to be sure if he was dead?
Bones, you got this.
It's no hurry, Mr. Spock. The antidote probably doesn't concern you. Vulcans are probably immune, so just take your time.
Probably immune. He's half human.
But I just can't believe that you would want Jim's command. But you must know that if you get us out of this situation, they'll pin a medal on your chest.
Plum's getting addled already.
Since you are playing this tape, we will assume that I am dead. And the tactical situation is critical, and both of you are locked in mortal combat. Use every scrap of knowledge and logic you have to save the ship, but temper your judgment with intuitive insight. You have those qualities, but if you can't find them in yourself, seek out McCoy. Ask his advice.
Together.
Help him if you can. But remember, he is the captain. His decisions must be followed without question. But you will find that he is deserving of the same loyalty and confidence
You gave me.
Take care.
Come on, guys. Jim's last wish.
Spock, I'm sorry. It does hurt, doesn't it?
What would you have me say, Doctor?
That's not an answer. We're getting a lot from the crew. I love this. That was super cool, too. This is the first time we've seen Uhura's quarters, right? Oh, no.
Captain! Captain Kirk, we thought you were...
He's out there. He's phasing in and out.
I did see him. I did. Spock! Mr. Spock!
I'm going to sick bay.
No, she's telling the truth, dude.
I'm not going mad. I did see Captain Kirk. I've got to get to Mr. Spock.
She's not being aggressive. That's the hallmark of this stuff. This is a good episode. I was going to say, this sumbitch is coming off the top rope. Watch out, Scotty.
Report report to Dr. McCoy all symptoms noted prior to the attack. Spock out.
Can I get a few licks in first? I thought he was. I thought Scotty was gonna backhand him. I have seen more props, more like Uhura's quarters, more things than more new shit than I've seen in a long time in this episode. I mean, at this point, we're pretty fucked no matter what, because they've got most of that web done. She's not acting like him.
Will I become like Chekhov, Doctor?
No, no. We're working hard. We'll find an antidote.
Well, they're dropping like flies here in engineering.
We're beginning to interface.
I'm all right.
Fife through it, kid.
Are we slipping into interspace?
Negative. We are relatively stable at the moment. Why do you ask?
Because I'm looking at Jim.
Mr. Spock, I've just seen Captain Kirk. He was standing there just as plain as we are.
In critical moments, men sometimes see exactly what they wish to see.
Do you suppose they're seeing Jim because
Everybody?
they lost confidence in you?
Fuck, Plum.
I urge you to confine yourself to it until a remedy has been found. Spock!
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I understand, Doctor. I'm sure the captain would simply have said, forget it, Bones.
I love these two. Guys, can we lock on? Can we do something? Maybe somebody unstrap Uhura? He's trying to tell you something. That was a cool shot of Scotty. I like that one. Big fan of this episode. Big fan of this episode. Really like it.
Am I all right, Doctor?
Yes, Sahara, you're...
As much as the rest of us.
Captain Kirk's alive?
We all saw him. The captain's still alive.
But I was strapped down. She'll never be pissed, but I'd be pissed.
That'll be about 20 minutes. She'll be back together, but we'll only have about 80% power built up.
It will have to do, Mr. Scott.
To your good health and the health of the crew.
You found the antidote, Doctor.
I did.
What is it?
It's a diluted Theragun derivative.
Theragun, a nerve gas used by the Klingons.
Aye, and deadly, too.
And in this derivative, mixed with alcohol, it merely deadens certain nerve inputs to the brain.
And blend of scotch will do that.
Well, one good slug of this, and you could hit a man with phaser stun, and he'd never feel it or even know it.
Scotty says, I'm in. Another round.
That's a medical order.
Captain.
Oh, man, I would have loved it if Spock had clink glasses. That would have been so cool.
5,
Stand by with full power.
4,
She's only up to 76%.
It will have to do.
1.
Ready to transport on my order.
I see him.
There he is.
It's Captain.
Engineering, bring ship's power up to full capability.
Ooh.
Where are we now, Mr. Spock?
Are we in the...
We've destroyed the Tholian's web.
Negative, Ensign.
We're somewhere else.
Have we lost the captain?
We shall soon see, Lieutenant.
The ship has been thrown exactly 2.72 parsecs distant from our previous position.
Good. Spock to transporter room.
McCoy here.
O'Neill's like...
It's the captain.
I see him, Ensign. I see him.
Energize. Shit. Go, go, go.
Bones. Welcome home, Jim. Mr. Spock gave the orders, and I found the answers.
Good. No problems between you.
None worth reporting, Captain.
Well, I hope my last orders were helpful in solving any problems that you don't feel worth reporting.
Orders, Captain?
What orders are you referring to, Jim?
My last orders. The last orders that I left for both of you. The last taped orders.
Oh, those orders. Well, there wasn't time. We never had a chance to listen to them.
No, you see, the crisis was upon us and then passed so quickly, Captain, that we...
Why didn't they tell him? I think it's interesting.
Ahead, warp factor 2, Mr. Sulu.
Warp factor 2, sir.
I really, really dug this episode. Really enjoyed that episode. All right, everybody, we just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, Season 3, Episode 9, The Tholian Web, and the only thing left to do is talk about it. All right, everybody, we just got done watching The Tholian Web, Episode 9 of Season 3. Yeah, friends, I'm going to jinx us hard here. I'm going to really... I talked about this before. We've had a string of what I feel to be very solid episodes. You know, in comparison for Season 3, the best of the bunch we've had over the past couple. You know, Spectre the Gun, I thought was awesome. I enjoyed Day of the Dove. You know, The World is Hollow. Or what is it? The World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky. It was a great episode. This one was really good. The Tholian Web was really, this was for my money, this could have been like a season 2 episode. You know what I mean? And that's terrible to say, but you know, we've had some inconsistencies with season 3, which I think it's fair to say that. And but I'm going to tell you what, I like the entire premise of this episode. I like the idea that you had multiple sources of problems going on here. You had an actual kind of like scientific problem, and that the space was kind of worn thin, if I'm understanding it correctly. And you know, we had these different inner space things that were happening. We had an abandoned spacecraft, or you know, another sister ship in the Defiant that was on the drift. You know, a lost, all hands lost type of situation. You know, a landing party, Jim doesn't come back, and that's when the horses are out of the gate. Really cool. I mean, I can't, I don't think I can overstate how awesome I thought this episode was, for the simple fact that we really, really had a chance to look at each of the characters that are on the bridge crew, you know, throughout I mean, even like Christine Chapel, everybody had, you know, because of the absence of Kirk, Bill Shatner, we had everybody else kind of step up, got a little bit more, got a couple more lines, a couple more moments, a couple more camera shots, a couple more reactionary shots, you know, just everything across the board lifted everybody else in the crew up so we could kind of, you know, just walk in their shoes for a little bit, walk with them a little bit. I love the idea that they stuck with them, and that they could have easily kind of like, you know, they could have interpreted the script very differently. I'm assuming that they're like, hey, you know, you can see Kirk, you know, materializing in and out of these things. They could have elected, and I'm sure maybe it was even, you know, kind of posed as this, we can go and actually, you know, be on Jim Kirk as he's trying to float and like get Uhura's attention, you know, and then like trying to get everybody else's attention as he kind of phases in and out. I am so glad they did not do that. I think, one, that it would have removed a lot of the like the tension from the area if you knew that Jim was completely fine and just kind of floating out there like, oh, I hope they figure this out, which is essentially what he was doing. I mean, obviously, you know, emotionally he was charged with the idea that he was going to die. I mean, it's Jim though, so I'm sure he wasn't, you know, over the top or anything. But again, I think that draws the tension down for the audience if you have him kind of check in. Like, hey, I'm okay, everybody. That's enough of a check-in that, you know, we don't need that. I want him, you're not sure if he's in pain. You're not sure if he's even him, you know. I love that idea. There was so much mystery and so much like ambiguity that was surrounding exactly what was happening to him that it kept everybody on their toes. And then we had the biological problem of this thin area in space, the scientific problem, creating a degradation of our brains. That is some of the coolest shit we've run across so far. It wasn't some type of like, you know, I'm not saying this to be derogatory, but it wasn't some type of like space fever, where everybody was like, oh, we contracted something, and kind of like naked time and things like that, where everybody kind of has a problem that's being passed around the ship. And I really, really enjoyed the idea that this was something that was actually physiologically happening to us. This radiation was effing with our brains, and it was doing so in such a way as to like just trigger aggression, trigger, combat, trigger just absolutely like flight or fight type of responses from us, which is really interesting to me. And I think that the script in and of itself was with a simple premise, not really simple, but the captain's lost is the premise. And we have to stay in the same spot to find him. Almost like, hey, this is the last place we saw him. He's got to be around here somewhere. But then you add in all these additional problems with the Tholians. The only thing I didn't like in the entire episode, and this is a minor nitpick on my part, as far as how it really affected me, but that blink they did at the end, where it wasn't them blinking, like interfacing to the world or the empty universe that Jim talked about. It was them conveniently like plopping 2.4 parsecs or whatever it was away out of the Tholian web. I would have liked to, and I'm sure that was probably like a time thing, like, oh, we're running long here. We're not gonna have a chance to like do diplomacy shit with the Tholians at this point. We just need to get them out of there. Completely understand it. I would have liked to have seen that scene though. And I would have liked to have seen it for this reason. I want to see that scene where, they have to kind of get out of the web, figure out how it's going. I would rather have seen that scene with Spock in command to show how Spock got them out of there, and not have like Jim run in to save the day. Like, look, I was, hurt and interphased and all that stuff. They don't need to prove themselves. I think by the Enterprise doesn't need to prove itself. I think by its, it stated what it was needed for. And I would love to have seen Spock work himself out of that, work the Enterprise out of the web, being the ambassador for the Federation, and being able to kind of alleviate the Tholian animosity and aggression, and tell them, hey, you might not want to hang around in this area of space. We're not sure exactly how it affects your physiology, but this is what it did to us. Something like that. And then being like, oh my God, yeah, he's right. Whoever their medical officer is, we are definitely being affected by this. And then Bones could have come through and said, hey, this worked for us. And that could have been some type of diplomacy. Now, again, they didn't have time to do all that. But that's the only thing that I missed. To me, if that had been folded in somehow, this episode would have been, one of my very, very favorites. And it's still way above average, way top half for me, like really, really good. I don't know. What do you all think? Honestly, I think that Season 3 gets a bad rap, and deservedly so for a couple of the episodes. And again, it's not, boy, these episodes suck, I can't watch them, Star Trek's awful. There's an inconsistency that was not apparent in seasons 1 and 2. We had a couple that weaker episodes in seasons 1 and 2, but again, there's just more of them in season 3. Tholian Web was not, in my opinion, friends. What do you all think, though? Because, this is, I could see, and I haven't looked at anything for Q&A yet. I'm curious to see I am curious to see how this was, how the audience received this one. And the only reason why I say that is everything that I've read said that, Kirk was a very popular character, but Spock was super popular. And so I'm wondering if the audience was like, oh, where's Jim? Or, where's the captain? Or they were like, oh my gosh, Spock's in charge. This is awesome. This is what we've been waiting for. Ever since the Galileo 7, we get to see Spock, in charge again. I'm curious. But the only way to figure out these things, and when everything else that went on behind the scenes, we got to rely on the guy that knows it all. Or at least claims to. General? Greetings and salutations, my friends. 'Tis I, leader of men, lover of women, and best friend to Jim Kirk, General Trelane, retired. Friends, this is where, after having watched and reacted to an original series episode, I like to dig a little bit deeper and find out what went on behind the camera, because as we've often said, the story behind the camera of the original series is often just as juicy as the one they put in front of the camera. However, to keep myself from wandering off into the weeds for 3 hours, I've given myself 5 categories with which to discuss. The first, writer and director. Who were they? The second, guest stars. Did we have any? The third, of the core cast or the big 8, who was present? The fourth and juiciest of the categories, the production notes. What went on behind the cameras? And last, but certainly not least, a memorable quote from this episode. Let's get started. All right, everyone, and for our very first category, writer and director, who were they? Well, right off the bat, we've got some controversy, my friends, because the writers for this episode were Judy Burns and Chet Richards, both rookies for the original series. But here is where the controversy comes in. For our director, the credited director is Herb Wallerstein. However, he was not the original director hired for this episode. The original director was none other than beloved Star Trek, the original series director, Ralph Sininsky. However, and I think this is indicative of season 3, my friends, because Ralph fell 1/2 day behind schedule because of, I'm assuming, problems we'll get into in a little bit, Ralph Sininsky was fired from the set of Star Trek, the original series for this episode, and Herb Wallerstein came in to do mop-up or wrap-up. That's why in the events of this episode, whenever we are watching what's going on, whenever we have that fisheye look, you know, whenever we're trying to talk to people and Spock was coming in and Chekhov and all that good stuff, that was all Ralph Sininsky. That's all the footage he shot. And then when all of a sudden the fisheye went away, that's Herb Wallerstein. So again, it's just, I think it's more, it's not something to get into later, but this is a creative team issue. You know, I just don't see DC Fontana. I just don't see, Gene Kuhn. I just don't see Gene Roddenberry up and firing Ralph Sininsky, a proven commodity, because he got a 1/2 day behind. I think that's indicative of just how tense everything was on the set. Friends, let's move on. All right, my friends, and for our second category, guest stars, did we have any? Well, not really, because everything sort of takes place on the Enterprise, and it's people we already know. However, I did decide, because the reaction shots by one O'Neill were so good, Sean Morgan is our actor that played O'Neill, and his looks down at the transporter, especially when he came up and looked at Scotty, were fantastic, were very good. And the other guest star I decided to throw in there, too, was Barbara Babcock, returning again to Star Trek, the original series, this time as the voice of the Tholian. Friends, let's move on. And now, my friends, for our third category of the core cast, or the Big 8, who was present. Well, first off, again, who are our Big 8 considered to be? We've got Kirk, we've got Spock, we've got McCoy, we've got Sulu, Scotty, Uhura, we've got Chekhov, and Chapel. Friends, we had them all. Awesome job, everybody. Cheers all around as we have a full complement of heroes aboard the NCC 1701. Let's move on. And now, friends, for category 4, our production notes. What went on behind the cameras? Let's get started. And friends, for our first production note, I love adding these things in here. Anytime the original cast, whether it be in the future, for them, at a Star Trek convention, or, for an article or something like that, or an interview, they would give their favorite episodes. Well, this was one of Nichelle Nichols' very favorite, the other being In Trouble with Tribbles. She said that she loved being out of uniform for Uhura, getting to see Uhura's quarters, and again, being the one that saw Kirk and reacted to Kirk first, and then kind of not being believed. She said she thought it was a very realistic and a very interesting storyline, and I completely agree. The Tholian Web checked a lot of boxes for me, least of which was getting to explore some of the other members of the crew a bit. Let's move on. All right, friends, and for our second production note, as we had the actor quote before, let's have a bit on the other side of the spectrum as we look at costumes. In this episode, we were introduced to an environmental suit, this one developed by William Thies, and it was replacing the one that we saw in The Naked Time. And this one was a little bit different to aid in both the comfort level of the actor and the visibility and kind of ability to communicate for the actor. Because as like the silver lame was used to kind of coat the outside, the visor was actually mesh. It gave the appearance of something being more of a screen or more solid, but at the same time, it allowed the actor to breathe and the camera to better see the actor portraying all of the information and conveying all the information that they needed them to convey. Excellent use of the materials at hand, and again, this was something that they created for season 3, which I always must take note of, because to do so means that they had to kind of go out of the budgetary constraints that they had, so we have to take notice of stuff whenever they really kind of spend their dollars. Friends, let's move on. And for our third production note, my friends, this is the one and only time during the original series that Spock refers to McCoy as Bones. And there's sort of an asterisk beside that because he didn't actually refer to him himself as Bones. He was quoting Jim when he said, "I'm sure Jim would have said, 'It's okay, Bones.' It's all right, Bones," or whatever he said. I thought that was very interesting, but this is the only time that he uses the nickname. Spock is entirely too formal for that. Friends, let's move on. And now, friends, for our fourth production note, as noted during the, the reveal or the memorial for Kirk, whenever Spock was telling everybody that, basically declaring Jim dead, the 24 crew members that were in there, whenever we said, "Oh my gosh, and that's a lot of extras," apparently it is the most that we ever see in any one place in the original series. That many crew members have never appeared in one particular place and one particular shot before, to the point where this was what stretched the costume designers to make sure that they had uniforms for everybody. And if you look through there, you can actually see some of the other uniforms for like peripheral non-Enterprise characters used. Interesting stuff, my friends. But again, the biggest gathering of crew members that we've seen to date. Let's move on. And last but certainly not least for our production notes, my friends, the fifth production note is this. This episode, The Tholian Web, actually garnered an Emmy nomination for Star Trek The Original Series, and Michael Miner was the person that was directly responsible for this use of special effects. Specifically, the phasing, McCoy putting his hand through the table, all of those things were kind of revolutionary for the time and definitely drew the attention of the Academy as they looked around and were trying to find exactly, what to nominate for that year. And Star Trek, again, got an Emmy nomination for it. Friends, let's move on. And now, my friends, for our fifth and final category here for the Q&A, I was playing coy before because this memorable quote is actually the one that we had talked about before, where Spock uses Bones for the first and only time in the original series. And the quote being, "I'm sure the captain would simply have said, 'Forget it, Bones.'" Friends, thus ends another installment of Q&A. Until such time as you and I get to travel upon the NCC 1701 and play with our dear friend Jim, behave yourselves.